Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm HalfBakedSims and today we are going to be taking a look at another plane that I got for X-Plane 12. We're going to be in the Flight Factor 767. This is the 300 freighter variant. There's about 600 different combinations of this plane that you can buy, and to narrow it down I just bought the professional version, which comes with the 200, 300, 300 extended range, 300 freighter. The only one that you don't get with this pack, I think, is the 400 ER, which just came out recently. But I was looking for something in between. The MD-11 is really fun, but I wanted something a little more modern, a little more used, and one of the most widely used freighter planes in the entire world is the Boeing 767. So, because of its size and its competitors, it's kind of been relegated to way more cargo airplanes than it does fly passenger. I know United still flies a lot of these, but more often than not, if you see a 767 on a flight tracker app, it's going to be a FedEx or UPS or even our Atlas Air buddy over there. I believe Atlas Air runs the 767 a lot too. So we are on the ground here at Memphis, and we are going to be flying to DFW today. Based on the thumbnail and title, I'm sure you already figured that out. So we will hop into the 767 and we will start booting it up. We'll turn on the battery, turn on standby power, turn on the bus ties. I'm going to need my checklist for that. Electrical power. APU generator comes on even though we're not starting it. And we will align the navs. Check, and do the CDU stuff. So, actually we need that for the ground stuff. Airplane, let's just open all the doors so we can check everything out, except for the back one. And we'll come over here to the ground operations. So I originally tried this flight and I got all the way to takeoff, and I realized I had no sound. There was a new version of the plane that dropped today, so I downloaded it, and apparently that screwed up my sound settings, so I had no sound coming out of the simulator at all. So I just reloaded the flight. We'll try it again. Brand new, let's see, loader unit. That's what we want. Okay. So I already explained all this again. I'm going to have to figure out exactly what I explained. So, okay, let's zero this stuff out. So we've got an empty plane. And today on the flight from Memphis to DFW, we're going to have 104,700 pounds of cargo on board. So one of the weird things about this plane that I've noticed is that you'll have pallets and cargo in the freighter variant. If you run the 300 and use it as a freighter, if you run a 300 and use it as a cargo plane, you will have passengers and cargo instead of pallet and cargo. The pallets, it doesn't say this anywhere. I had to go digging through X-Planes forums to find somebody that said that the pallets are 9,800 pounds each. So if we've got 104,700 divided by 9,800, that gives us 10.6. So obviously the first thing we're going to do, well, that is a loud plane, is put in 10 pallets. So we've got 10 pallets. We're still short a couple thousand pounds because our zero fuel weight today is 302.7 off the block, and we are missing, let's see, 296. We're missing 6,700 pounds, which we will just plug into the cargo. Once we do that, let's come down here and plug in our weight, 33,804 pounds of fuel today. You can see that our CG is just a little off. We'll optimize that, and it'll move it around so that we don't tip over on takeoff. So one of the things with loading this aircraft is you gotta watch out for your math here, and you also have to have all the doors open. You have to have the fuel truck called. You can load cargo without the stairs and the cargo loader here. You do have to have the fuel truck to load the fuel though. So we hit load, unload, and you can hear them starting to load stuff up. What the heck? I guess we need our external power. So now that we're established on external power, we can come down here. Holy cow, that's really loud. But you guys probably won't hear it as loud as I am because it's plugged in right into my headphones. So, position initialization, we are at Memphis. We are going to DFW. Fine. What did they just do? Okay. I want you here. Done. Memphis to DFW. This is weird to say it like that. FedEx 526, I believe. So we are out of here on, let's come down here. We're out of here off of 18 left, Childer 5, transition to Answa. We're going to direct to lit, direct to meow, and direct to few, F-E-W-W-W. Where's F? I'm so stupid. Okay. And we might as well do our arrival because the flight's not that long. It's only a like an hour, 15-minute flight, I think is what it said. But that's based off of winds, which we're not flying with because X-Plane 12 sucks. And do not want to deal with the rocking motion back and forth all flight. So we're not going to do it. Okay, so let's come up top here. Our fuel actually is all loaded. Let's see if we're still loading the plane as far as cargo goes. But as long as the fuel's loaded, we can punch this stuff in. So 302, 700, no, hold on, 0.7, 0 fuel weight. Reserve fuel today, 13,288, 13.9? No, 13.3. We're cruising at 280, and our cost index is 179, so pretty steep takeoff here. We'll just do a takeoff of 5. We're still loading things, so I won't set our CG yet. But while we're doing that, we can come to the pre-flight checklist. We can come up here, turn on the yaw dampers, turn on these 2 switches. Left and right engine pump switches are down here. The utility bus switches are here. The generator control switches are here. The APU selector should go to start. So we'll wait until we're done loading to start the APU up. In the meantime, we can set up the MCP. So 18 left is a 180-degree heading on takeoff. We're cruising up to 280,000 feet. We'll turn on the flight directors. Alright, we're done loading. So we'll come down here. Now that we're done loading, we can actually just... Oh, nope, not that. We need to press this, and it'll set our CG for us. We'll do select on for our speed. We'll talk more about this in a second, but that's going to be something we have to deal with. And we will turn the APU to start. So we'll wait for the APU to start up real quick. We'll arm the emergency light switch. We'll make sure that that's done. Our takeoff altitude is 278 feet. So we've actually got a pretty sloped runway. Usually you don't see this, but there's about 60 feet in between, or the difference between the end of the runway and the start is about 60 feet, which is kind of crazy. Okay, we'll put these on. We won't do any of this yet because we're still waiting on the APU to start up, which we can view the progress of, which is down here. So you can see it out back too. Now that we have sound, we can actually hear it. Right there. Let's see, airplane, close all the doors, operations, ground. We'll get rid of the fuel truck, get rid of the loader unit, get rid of these stairs. We'll keep the chocks and the GPU for now. Once the APU says run, we can go to auto on the engine start selectors. The position light switch can come on. Let's see. I don't want to miss how we switch over to the APU because I missed it last time. Selector goes to start, so this thing's kind of difficult to use sometimes. There's no scroll, so you just have to click. You have to mash the click button. I'm sure you can hear that. We don't need the wing lights. We need the window heat switches to all be on. The smoking seat belts for all 3 people. Auto rate control is set. Mode selector goes to auto. And let's see, forward cabin temperature controls. So I could click through the just perform button, which is kind of nice. You can just have it do everything for you. I don't really like to do that because it can get messed up. Sometimes it's waiting for you for things that you didn't realize it wants you to do. So it's easier to just do this. So left, right, or left, center, right, engine bleed switches, APU bleed switch. Blah, blah, blah. Flight directors are done. IRSs are aligned. Okay. See, this stuff you can just go through. Minimums, HSI, speed reference. We'll do that in a second. Transponders done. ILS done. Cargo. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Before start procedures. So we will lock that. Takeoff thrust set. IAS bugs. So this is where we get to do this. So in a normal Boeing plane, normal planes, this, you plug the speeds in and it puts it up here. Not in the 767. So we've actually got to come down here in the center one, make sure this is set to takeoff. And you scroll this little wheel, set this to 144. Set this to 151. And set this to the V2, sorry, to 158. Select. So now we've got all speed bugs set. Our stuff's right here. Check. Initial altitude check. Main cargo door closed. Right electric pump. So now we got to turn on this stuff. Center air pump switch goes to auto. Left fuel pump switches. These go on. Red anti-collision. The recall switch gets pushed here, and our trim is 5.1. So you actually need to bind a control to this. You can't just there's no wheel, there's no trim wheel here, so you actually have to bind something to what you want to press. So we'll just trim up here. This is we'll just leave it at 5.1 for takeoff right there. So I have it on my yoke. That's just the easiest thing for me to do, is just bind it the same way it's bound here. So trim is performed. Okay, so now we need to switch over to the APU off of external power. So let's turn off external power. Get rid of the GPU and the chocks. Secondary engine indicators, go to select. Pax control, go to off. And we can start the engine. So we start engine 1 first. So we'll wait for N2 to reach 15%. And hit run. Introduce fuel. There we go. Look at that. These engines are kind of small. They look, you know, compared to a 777, obviously every engine's small, but compared to how big the plane is, they are kind of tiny. But they definitely put out some work. All right. Come on. Let's go back to the cockpit here. So we're waiting for that to stabilize. Verify that it is at idle. before we start engine number 2. So we'll come up here. What am I looking for? Here we go. Ground on engine 2. I'm getting kind of framey here. That's interesting. Usually I get really good frames with this plane. But with the update, who knows? Alright, so verify. Something is very clicky. Ooh. I don't know. We'll deal with that later. Okay. So while we're waiting for that to run, we'll look at what we need to do next. So okay, we're almost idled here. So we'll go APU selector goes to off, engine anti-ice switches we don't need. We'll do packs go to auto, left isolation comes off, right isolation comes off, APU bleed air goes off, perform that status check, flap lever will go to 5 for takeoff. Taking a while for those flaps to go. And then we'll need the transponder, taxi light, and logo light to go on before continuing. Alright, so the transponder is down here. Holy cow, that's loud. Alright. Let's see, taxi light is on. Logo light goes on. And we turn this to RTO, enable LNAV, VNAV. We've got our VREF speed still set. Last time it auto deselected those, which was kind of not cool. And we are ready to taxi. Taxi up just a little bit here. So we don't need to push back right now, obviously, because we're at a cargo stand. We can just go straight out. If you do want to taxi in this plane, there is a pushback operations here, and you'll hit push back and it'll call it. Once it's there, it took me a second to figure this out. You actually, you actually control the, you'll actually control the pushback tug, is what I'm trying to say. Pushback tug will be controlled with your throttle. So if you're pushing back and you want to go backwards, you push the throttle up and it'll increase the speed of the tug. I guess I can get rid of that. We can just focus on taxiing now. So what are my thoughts on the 767 so far? I think that this plane is probably one of the steadiest add-ons to get in X-Plane. As far as quality goes, I think it's about 4 or 5 years old at this point. It was made for X-Plane 10 originally. And then they ported it over to X-Plane 12 or X-Plane 11. And then they ported it over to X-Plane 12 after that. It runs really well. Right now we're getting about 20 frames. That's probably because I'm recording. Usually I get about 30 to 35 frames out of this. Once we get in the air, you'll see the frames will buffer out. I'll get about 40. It runs really well. It's got a lot of feature depth. It's pretty much everything you click on will work. We'll get up in the air and we'll take a cabin tour, a flight deck tour. There's a lot to do, there's a lot that's modeled in that works. The textures themselves are kind of okay. It's not the greatest thing I've ever seen. It's not the worst. But yeah, I really wish that I had tried out a lot of these modules before purchasing them. I love the A340. I think I fly that the most still. The Dash 8, I'm still struggling to find the joy in flying it. It's really frustrating for me, honestly. I don't think I like small planes very much. I think that might be the issue. I thought I'd give it a shot, but you know, it's the same size as the BAE 146, and I don't like that plane very much at all. And that's just my personal likes and dislikes flying in simulators. The MD-11 is kind of hard for me to recommend to people right now. It's still, the Rotate MD-11 is still a little busted as far as descent VNav goes. Everything else works pretty well. It is a really fun plane to fly if you like tri-jets. It's just a cool old-fashioned plane that is awesome to fly and look at. But as far as utility goes, this 767 can kind of do everything. It's a wide body that's probably the most used cargo jet in the world, like I was saying earlier. So, you know, if you look up 767, especially early in the mornings in America, at least in the United States, if you look at flights departing between 4 and 5, they're all cargo flights before the main traffic of the day starts, and they're all going to be 767s usually. It's 767, 757 is another huge cargo hauler. And a lot of that is due to kind of just where the 767 slots into the airplane market. We're slowing down here for some reason. We're getting real slow on this turn. But the 767, I guess we can talk about it a little more. As far as the airplane market goes, it was designed back in the 70s and 80s for domestic long haul. That would be LA to New York, over land. The main reason that we had tri-jets for so long was the ETOPS regulations. So as engines improved, the ETOPS regulations, which basically govern how far away from a airfield you can be at any given point, those rules changed. So when the 767 originally launched, the ETOPS was 90 minutes. So there was no way it could fly in cross-continental. You needed the 747 or a similar 4-engine or 3-engine plane to make a cross-continental flight, or international flight across open water. As those regulations were starting to decrease, the 767 came out, and it was a wide body, very similar to the 757 in that aspect, except the 757 is a narrow body plane. And these planes were intended for, like I said, domestic long haul flights, something inside of airspace over land at all times. That all changed in the 90s with the introduction of the ETOPS regulations becoming more and more, as the engines got more and more proficient at flying long distance without breaking down. That was the main concern, was safety. You know, can my plane, if I lose an engine, can I make it all the way back to an airfield? No. Okay, well, then we have to fly a different plane. As that started to change, the A330 was introduced by Airbus that kind of knocked the 767 out of its market. It was a better plane, more efficient, engines were better. It was a little bit wider for cargo so that you could actually fit all-sized cargo containers into it, stuff like that. And as Boeing was really struggling to find a market for the 767, they introduced longer variants to fit more passengers, to go longer range with the new engines, blah, blah, blah. And they still found that they couldn't really crack the market that the A330 had taken over. So let's actually take off here as we come into the runway here, and we will continue our history lesson in a little bit. So we've got our VREF speed set. Like I said, you have to put it in here. We'll do run, make sure that's all set, make sure that's set to toga, and spool up to 70, and we'll get ready for takeoff. 70%. Here's toga. And let's get out of Memphis on our way to Dallas Fort Worth. He's off the stick there. So I found last time when I took off that I kind of just floated into the air because of this runway slope. So I wonder if that'll happen again. Here's view 1. Rotate. There we go. Gear up. Ooh, it wants a really shallow takeoff here. There we go. I'm so used to the MD-11 where you just go 20-degree climb right off the runway, because that thing's engines are crazy. There we go. We are out of here. This plane is a lot of fun to hand fly. It's kind of just like a big 737. There's not much difference between the two at the end of the day. I will say this thing does want to tip backwards just a little bit. Let's trim down just a little bit here. Don't want to trim down too much, but I don't want to keep pushing the stick forward. The yoke. There we go. Cool. Now we are on the climb. Let's reduce our range here on the map so we can see when we're about to turn. So we're on the climb profile now. You got to make sure that this flips over to climb. We'll turn off these lights. We'll keep the landing lights on for now. Let's go this way. So we'll come up to 1 on the flaps. Make sure I selected that right. Yep. I have my Bravo throttle quadrant. I've got a flaps selector, but it's tuned for the 737 still. It's got 3D printed gates on it that attach to it, which is really nice. But I didn't want to order another $40 piece of plastic to stick on there just so I have the gates for a 767. Because they are a little different. Instead of it being, 1, 2, 5, 10, 15, it just goes 1, 5, 15. That is my dog, sorry. So, oh my gosh. All right. We are coming through 6,000 feet. I think I'm going to turn on the autopilot just so I have a little more freedom to look around the cockpit, make sure everything's set up right. We'll make sure our brakes are disarmed here. And we'll clean on flaps. So there you have it. Takeoff for the 767. It's really cool. Really good looking plane. The exterior texture is great. The interior texture is actually really good too. It's just a little dated. They've done a bunch of updating, but there's only so much you can do. So, really nice plane though. As we come up out of Memphis. So, like I was saying, we can continue our history lesson of the 767. As ETOPS were, as engines were improved, ETOPS got more and more extended. So it went from 90 minutes to 180 minutes. That was the first big, it didn't go straight to 180 minutes, but it gradually increased to 180 minutes. And when that happened, the A330 knocked the 767 out of its market, because why would I get an older, less efficient Boeing plane when I can get a brand spanking new Airbus that basically flies itself, goes further, is more efficient, and can carry more cargo and passengers. So as they tried to introduce longer and more efficient variants for the 767, they finally hit a point where they're like, okay, we've got the 767-400. What's next? And they were like, well, we need to put some bigger engines on this thing. We need to make it longer. We need to make it wider. And they finally said, you know what? We'll just make a new plane. So that's where the 777 comes from. It was actually intended to be a 767 variant, and after a lot of redesigns and everything. They said, well, why don't we just make a new plane? And the 767 came out, and that one took over the market as well, and kind of relegated the 767 to a shorter domestic route. So it is still filling a very niche part of passenger airline operations, which would be the 3-hour wide body. So if I need a wide body plane to go, from New York to Dallas, you usually would pick a 767 or an A330. It's still good, going to Hawaii, stuff like that. ETOPS regulations, it can go pretty far, but the whole thing is, why would I run a 767 international when the 777 is just better in almost every single way? And so then the 767 kind of phased out, and most of what you see will be a cargo airliner now. It'll be handling freight for FedEx or UPS most of the time. You won't really get a chance to ride on a 767. Like I said, United still runs it, and a couple other airlines run the 767 still, but yeah, I think it's a great plane. I think it's really fun. What I really wanted was the 777, but Flight Factor, who makes the 777, that thing is even more outdated. Their 777's from like X-Plane 8 or something crazy, and they haven't updated it. They basically said, yeah, this thing is updated to X-Plane 11. We didn't do anything to optimize it for X-Plane 11. What you're flying basically is an X-Plane 8 plane and X-Plane 11, and they're working very heavily right now on the 777 version 2, which is a complete overhaul. I think from the ground up, they're redoing everything from texturing, systems, flight dynamics, just anything that you can name. They're redoing the logic of the computer system, how it interacts with the new weather systems in X-Plane 12, just everything. So that's supposed to come out in 2023, like most plane manufacturers, not most plane manufacturers, but sim plane manufacturers. I don't see them releasing it anytime soon. They've promised 2023 since last year. They've been saying it, but yeah, I was tired of sitting around waiting for it, so I just got a 767. I really needed something Boeing that wasn't a 737 in this game. If I want to fly a 737, I'll go fly the PMDG. You can't beat it, even the lack of an EFB. It's still better than anything else we've got. Let's flip over to standard, even though we're already on it. And yeah, there we go. So we're climbing through 18,000 feet. We're almost to almost to our cruising altitude already, which is 28,000. It's not a very long flight. Like I said earlier, you can actually check out. Let's see here. Check out how far we got to go. Let's go to the. What am I doing? So you can come over here to plan, just like every other Boeing plane. So we've got a disconnect here, and I think that might be our vectors into the yeah, so we'll have to vector into the landing. Let's pull that up actually and just look at it. So we're landing 13. Right? Yeah, so we'll come around here, transition to Maury, head in. That's our missed approach. Did I see another? I did, right here. That was what I was looking at. Let's go back to our map here. So now we don't have any disconnects. Cool. No disconnects, no issues on the flight plan. As we are breaking through 20,000 feet. So I will do some... Oh, big stretch. Yeah. All right. Whew. I'll do some flight sim movie magic. There's my dog coming flying in. Hi. And we will see you guys as we get to top of descent. Alright, we are back up in the cockpit now. We are around 60 miles out from top of descent right here. So we are going to start preparing for our arrival into DFW. So, first things first, let's get our altitude selected to the right altitude. So we're going down to 2,300 feet before we intercept the glide slope. And the way that you set up an ILS approach, it will actually tell you right in here. So we need to select flaps 25. That's usually what I go with. It'll tell you right here. So ILS 13 right is 109.5 at the course of 135. That pulls from the AirX cycle. You actually do have to punch it in still, even though, like I said, like sometimes this doesn't talk to the plane. Even though it populates it here, you still have to punch it in back on the center console here. So there's only one ILS approach frequency. These are for VORs and DMEs. This is exclusively for the ILS. So like I said, it's 109.5 on a course of 135. 135, just like that. So there's no funny business. When we get closer, it'll start picking up the frequency here. You can see it's gonna tune itself basically like the 737 would. So we've got our altitude selected, we've got our ILS selected. We need to select our landing altitude, which is going to be 591. So we'll do 590 for that. I'm trying to think of what else I need to do. I know I'm missing something. I guess we could pull up the checklists here. Landing altitude set, ECAS recall, arrival installed, radios are tuned, landing flaps are selected. VREF, that's right. So our VREF is 151, so we need to flip this over to approach, and we'll do 151 right there. So we've plugged that in now. Our minimums are going to be, ILS is going to be 791, so that's right here. We need to flip it to Barrow, and then up to 791, like that. And our auto brake we will set to probably, it's a pretty long runway. It's 9,300 feet, so we should be okay. I've noticed with this plane, it actually does stop pretty quick, which is nice. Don't have to worry about it overshooting stuff. So, yeah, there we go. Reduce this so you can see we're coming up on descent. Like I said, it's going to be in 35 miles. Oh, yeah, one of the things we were going to do is take a tour of the flight deck. So, let's see here. I'm going to do it sideways because I'm weird. So, this is one of the shocking things, is how freaking big this flight deck is. I mean, you got 3 jump seats. If you go around the corner, this is, this goes out into the cargo hold. One of the only things that kind of sucks about this plane is that it doesn't actually show a full cargo hold. It'll just be empty out there. But yeah, I mean, look at all this room, man. You could take a nap down here. You know, pull your seat way out. There's 3 jump seats. They don't look like the most comfortable thing in the world. You can't click on them. But this is one of the panels that I want to look at. So this controls, from what I can tell, this controls all of the fire system and air conditioning and cooling systems in the cargo hold. So this is one of the parts of the plane being exclusively for freight. It's built like this. So here's all your flight recorder, stuff like that. A lot of these buttons you can actually push. I don't want to mess with them right now. You can do all this stuff. Pretty cool. They even modeled that in, and they didn't just make it for show. But one of the things that I do know about this plane from doing some research is that in the cargo hold, I guess we can go out there. I can show you. Oop. Just gotta take our time here. I wish I could make this move faster. So in the cargo hold, you come in through this door, obviously, and then right here there's another door into the cargo hold itself. If you go out there, it's just nothing. There's space. So what they'll do is they'll actually, and you can see this is like an oven or microwave, coffee bar, stuff like that. They'll sometimes load in a crew module that goes right into this little slot right here, and that'll be where you'll have your crew rest module. So it'll have a couple bunks. It'll have space for, I think it's 3 to sleep, which is pretty cool. And they use that for long hauls. So if you're not on a long haul flight, if you're on a short flight, they'll take that module out and they can actually use it for extra cargo space, or they can just make the plane lighter so it's a little more efficient. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, this cargo deck is, this flight deck's pretty massive. Pretty well modeled. The textures aren't crazy, but you're not, the amount of time you look behind you is pretty minimal in a flight simulator. That's kind of one of those things where it's like, PMDG didn't model their interior for their plane. Everybody gave them crap about it, but then after like a month, everybody was like, why is Phoenix get such low frames compared to PMDG's 737? And it's because they didn't model, or they modeled the interior and PMDG didn't, and that probably gets you about 5 to 10 frames on most computers. So I think it's smart to not deal with that. So let's see here. Top of descent coming up pretty quick. We should start slowing down soon as we head on into Dallas. So like I said, we're going to catch, let's see, I'll show you on the map kind of what it's going to look like. So we're going to catch the vector here and then turn into Maury and head on in. We'll probably do more of a rounded curve than a straight inline like this, just so we can get set up on the approach easier. This is only, Maury is about 11 miles, maybe 12 miles out from the runway. So by the time we hit Maury, we want to be pretty much configured to land, drop the gears. I don't want to hit this at 250 knots and then slam on the brakes and overshoot the approach. So we'll get more or less configured on the vector, and then once we turn in, we'll be pretty much ready to land. There's my dog again. FMC message says drag required. I guess we should pop out a little bit of drag here. It looks like it didn't really do a good job of slowing down before starting the descent, which is kind of something I've noticed in a lot of planes. It'll go flying into your descent, top of descent marker at full speed. Yeah, it'll go flying into your descent marker at top speed, and it won't hit the brakes. It won't reduce the throttle before you start descending. So I'm really hoping that X-Plane can fix this freaking live weather bug that's been happening with the winds. It's been killing me that I can't fly with live weather. Sometimes I do my best to recreate it, but it still will give you a little bit of turbulence with the headwinds. So it's frustrating to not fly in weather conditions realistic at all, because sometimes you get a headwind, sometimes you get a tailwind. And that shoots your arrival time off. What should have been an hour and 40-minute flight is now 2 hours and 10 minutes because you didn't get a tailwind like you were supposed to. So that's something they need to fix really quick. And I don't know what's taking them so long. This has been a known thing that they've had people reporting for months now. And it's been dumb. So, all right, as we come into our descent, I'll catch up with you guys once we hit the vector. We will come back into the cockpit. Alright, we are approaching the final vector into DFW. The airport will actually be just off to our left. That's not it. It's going to be way over there. Come here, do that. Yeah, so our final approach speed is going to be... I guess I could look down here. It's 151, so we got to be kind of conscious of our speed as we hit this vector into Mori here. We're already down to 240 knots because we're below 10,000 feet. So we will just keep on coming down. I think actually this is supposed to be at 3006. I think that's what I have it set to on the, because I have to do the custom weather. Let's see, here we go. That's 8, dummy. That was 6. There should be a way to pull up a weather report. I can't remember how I do it though. I don't think it's in here either. Yeah, it's not in there. Alright, well, let's go to our checklist here. Let's see, smoking seatbelt signs go on. Wing lights are on. QNH is fine. That's fine. Alright, so we'll deal with that. I'm trying to think of the best way to get in on this vector here. So that's Lake Louisville right here. Pretty sure. Yeah. So we're actually flying pretty close to my house right now. Yeah, there's the tollway. Cool. Okay. Yeah, these planes fly really low. Sometimes you can hear them in the videos, but they fly really low from my house, landing at DFW, which is kind of crazy. Alright, so I'll speed up time just a little bit here until we get to this turn here, because right now we're on that vector. Okay, we are coming down towards the vector here, and we need to drop some speed. So we're going to go down to 3,000 feet, which is the Mori waypoint. Mori point is at 3,000 feet. So you can see flight level change isn't really doing it. We need to get some speed brake out. Don't really know why the engine was... the auto throttle disarmed there. Hello. Arm the auto throttle, please. Very strange that it's doing that right now. Let's see. So let's do a... let's go to our legs here. Do a direct to Mori, because we're pretty much on that line at this point. Go back to VNav. So it should start decreasing our altitude soon. Come on. There we go. Just a little bit. Oh no, it's increasing our altitude for some reason. Alright, so we're going to have to fight the autopilot in here. It's going to turn all the way back onto that line. I hate it when it does that. Start descending here. Any minute now. Don't worry about it. Because by Mori it wants us at 3,000 feet, and we are still at 5,200. Because it's doing 3,000 above. Alright, that's fine actually. We'll be fine. I'm going to be down to 180 though. do that. Get flaps 5 out here. So this is interesting. Usually I don't land at these diagonal runways at DFW because there's the 4 main runways that face north-south, and then there's the 2 auxiliary runways which face, you know, they're diagonal to that. And then there's one more way off to the side that also faces north-south, but I've never used that one either. This will be kind of interesting. See how the plane handles it. See how we handle it. Alright, so we're coming up on Maury here. Once we hit that, we'll I'll go ahead and arm the approach now, because we're going to catch our glide slope pretty quick. Once we catch that glide slope, let's see, we'll turn to our approach here. As you can see, this is kind of our another version of this going on here. So we're 14 miles out still. So we've got time to slow down here to our final speed. We need to be at 156 pretty soon. There's the runway. Runway in sight. So we'll catch this glide slope and then we'll start preparing to land here. There goes my Alexa. And there goes my dogs. For some reason they think it's talking to them, even though it never is. So 11 miles out right now. A little over 11 and a half. So let's go. Oh, geez, I just flicked that. So we got all of our lights on. We've got our speed brake, our auto brake is set. We will arm the speed brake. We will start reducing our speed to 156. Get in another thing of flaps there. Get a sip of water. We're at 190. Drop the gear. Pretty cool looking. All right. Descending on that glide slope just right now. So we'll go ahead and get to flaps 25, which is our final landing. Flaps, speed brake is set. Or, you know, auto brake, speed brake set. Everything is set and in. So now we're just on the nice, easy descent down into DFW. So we'll actually take over the plane here. Get some hand flying in. Some more throttle in here. Trying to get better with managing the throttle on descent. Notice I've gotten okay at everything else. It's just managing speed and the I always end up coming in low and then over throttling and then crashing in the runway. So I'm trying to avoid that. You can see we're still a little low here. So we'll pitch up just a little bit. Chase that dot. We're still centered. I have noticed in X-Plane, at least, a lot of the ILS, they're not very accurate. You can see that we're lined up, you know, a solid like 50 feet left of the runway right now. So we'll have to manage that. Coming back online here. Should be good. Get the throttle decreased. There's 500. Back on center line. Coming in just a little high, but that's fine. We just don't want to sink too much on this approach. Get the throttle out just a little bit. There we go. Lined up perfectly.
50, 40.
Start reducing throttle.
20, 10.
There we go. Reverser's green. $100 knots. Alright, 70 knots. We'll get the auto speed brakes out, and then get the reversers out. And there we go. Welcome into Dallas Fort Worth. Get our flaps up here, disengage the auto brake, make sure we get the APU started, get our taxi lights on. Come on. These freaking switches there are crazy. They're like just in the way of the click spot for the runway turn off and taxi light. So there's no way to click them without going to the overhead view. It's killing me. There we go. I'd say that was a rather successful flight. No hiccups. Just a little bit of manual flying, fighting the speed and descent rate on the autopilot there at the end, but did a pretty good job. Getting a lot better at this. Notice that the flare is kind of difficult sometimes, but I don't know, not too bad. So we will go park up here at the West Cargo platform, which is not too far. I'm actually kind of glad they landed us at this runway. It's one of the shortest taxis to the cargo hangars. So we'll come this way. Throttle in so we don't lose our speed. A lot of frames dropped here. DFW. I think that's just the nature of the airport itself. And we're recording, so if you notice some choppiness at the end of this flight, it's not the stream or your video. It is the game itself being kind of choppy for me. I forgot to pull up Volanta, so I can't see our landing rate. But I think we did a pretty good job. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little hard, but I don't think it would be anything crazy. We did a pretty good flare. I think you have to flare just a little earlier than normal in this kind of plane. The MD-11 especially. I think there's these heavy cargo planes. When you start flaring, you've got to really do it earlier. You're gonna... I've noticed I can't float in this plane. I will not float. I will crash into the ground. It's the same with the MD-11, I guess. So let's just find a nice spot over here to park up at. Here we go. We will get the engines off and we will look at the replay, see how it goes. I'm not going to go through the full deboarding process for the for the cargo. I think it's kind of moot. Alright, there's that. Make sure APU is on. Turn off our engines. And there we go. Nice and easy into DFW. Oh, we're inside a building. Parked up pretty well. So let's go take a look at the replay. See how we landed here. Let's see here. Yeah, pretty firm, but didn't float. Got it down. So that was pretty good. Alright. Well, thank you everyone for watching the video. I hope you had a good time. We'll probably be back in X-Plane 12 next time I see you again. Flying more 767 or maybe the MD-11 or maybe the A340. I haven't flown that one in a while, so... until next time, make sure you guys like and subscribe. We just hit 200 subscribers, which is huge for the channel. We're still a long way off monetizing and, you know, getting official with it, but I think we've done a pretty good job so far. So if we can keep pushing up towards 300 subscribers in the next month or so, that would be awesome. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.